Romal, I'm going to come back to you and, again, want a very, very sharp perspective, advising clients from where you sit. How do you help both individuals and companies with this ability to look for opportunities in a world of constraints? Because there will be constraints, right? What typically comes in the way? Why do companies or leaders not think as smartly as some others do? And, are there really any quick common takeaways that our viewers could possibly benefit as tips to get to see opportunities in the face of the constraints that they are in, including the MSME segment? And, so anything that comes to your mind that companies don't do but should be doing?
Yeah, so thanks, Prabir. I think it's a great question. I mean, constraints are due to time, money, resources, abilities, choice, orthodoxies, right? I'll take maybe a few stories and real life example stories. We were told by the Orissa government that this is much before any other state government really reacted to say, can you help us on this whole COVID perspective, right? Which is whether to identify which areas it will explode, to identify somebody who could have symptoms without actually going to a doctor, to finally, looking at zones, doing geoperimeter fencing, to all of that. And, working with the state government, we've obviously worked for many years with state governments, but they're not the easiest to work with. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. And what we also realized is we had to bring in many different skills. So we actually, we got in Salesforce, we got in Google, we got in IIT Mumbai, we got in our Israel folks, because the doctors in Israel had basically identified a way to, identify people with symptoms. So they had these were specialists. And then of course, Deloitte US, because, they specifically bought in Salesforce skills as well. We put this whole platform integrated with WhatsApp in 7 days flat. Nobody stepped out of their house, right? And it basically was a 24-hour thing working across continents, right? But to build, normally if you had asked, hey, can you develop something like this? And we would have said, yeah, sure, 6 months, we'll do testing, we'll do, waterfall, we'll do all of that stuff. And we'll in 6 to 9 months, we'll roll it out. This was done in 7 days flat. Right?
Wow.
So one of the things is, and I think is a lot of it is to do with belief and say that we can pull it off and we can really, and constraints make you better rather than actually constraints forcing you to say this can't be done. Way back, long time back, and it's a story that I want to say that, we used to do some work in Afghanistan. Now, forget why we were doing that work in Afghanistan. We were doing for a telco story. It was about revenue optimization, maximization, really doing, a lot of work on consumers, especially the telco consumers. And while doing the work, and this was not just a core technology job, because it was revenue maximization, strategy, product development, all of that stuff. Our hotel got attacked by the terrorists. You would have heard of this because this was a big news. They were basically trying to attack the Indian doctors who were actually in the hospital next to our hotel. And the terrorists actually came up to the first floor. We were on the third floor. They were neutralized with a lot of deaths. Now, we obviously couldn't do any work now in Afghanistan going forward, because obviously the team and everybody else was terrorized. But what we took as a challenge to say that doesn't matter, and this had never been done before. I'm talking about 10 years back. This is not 3 years back, Black Swan, nothing. 10 years back, Afghanistan, of course, it was the common daily occurrence shootings. We were able to build a model, right, to actually service the client even without being there, but to do a strategy and operations, of course, with analytics, with technology, but really not being there at all. So I think some of that. And third is, companies have orthodoxies. Vivek can explain much better than me in terms of orthodoxy, but Starbucks, what was the orthodoxy? The earlier orthodoxy of a cafe shop was you come in and you go fast so that you have more consumers come in. They broke that orthodoxy to say that they wanted people to sit in the cafe for longer, right? So how do you break orthodoxy? So a lot of that is, I would say constraints of how you convert constraints into opportunities. What comes in the way was your question. And really a lot of it is to do with mindset. I think there is a specific mindset, and Partha made it very beautiful in terms of the question that our sons and our youngest employees, can they be reverse mentoring us? Right? Why can't they actually do that? Second is really lack of confidence. To Indian companies, I wouldn't say Indian, they're really multinational companies really, but world-class companies. We have in India lived with constraints far longer than the West has ever lived with. So innovation and ability in our country is far higher. So the reason should not be lack of confidence. We can probably do a lot. I mean, you take our scientists, you take everything else. The third biggest problem, what comes in the way, is fear of failure. There is this big fear of failure. If I do this, what happens? Will I lose my job? What will my seniors think? Whoever think, right? So those are really what comes in the way. And some tips I would say to deal is having a culture of fail fast and learn fast, right? Is it necessary for an auto engineer or a consumer specialist not to understand cloud? What is the necessity? Why shouldn't they understand cloud? I mean, is cloud something only a technical thing? We spoke about most companies that are implementing cloud. If they go in for just the on-prem, off-prem kind of an environment, it's a waste of time. But if they can go to change the business model where they can deliver something contactless, touchless in a very short period of time, why not? I mean, you look at Tesla. Tesla is a classic combination of a software company and an auto company really becoming together. It's really a software, I mean, more than just an auto company, right? So how do you sort of make some of that? Second is, how do you bring in a culture of innovation and culture of fearless? I think that's what leaders really should do. How do they ensure, and these are tough times, these are extraordinarily tough times. Vivek mentioned about it. What kind of legacies did you leave behind? How do you sort of motivate people to do something extraordinary? And I think that is what is really required. And, again, there are a lot of tidbits that came out as well, right? I mean, Mahindra's, for example, saying that how do you bring in innovation during this time? But that is very critical because you have to start looking at that. And third is, of course, incentivizing in a different way. In an extremely different way. Doesn't have to be a monetary award. It could just be gamification. It could just be having fun. But how do you sort of incentivize for people to move ahead, right, and move and try different things? So I think those were some quick comments from my side.